there's a generation of kids these days that are grown up in South Africa that don't know South Africa without load shedding.
I don't think things are stable when you're sitting with unemployment rate about 30% and an expanded unemployment rate of about 40%, where people who are looking for work have actually given up looking for work.
Kids are still having to walk 30 kilometers plus to actually go to their schools. They are riddled with crime along the way. They are raped. They have absolutely no food, yet you do have the capacity to ensure that there is food for those kids because they have no other source of food for themselves the entire day. You need to be accountable to that.
If we can have a moral regeneration, vigorous program run by government, run by society, of moral regeneration, I think we can go somewhere where a young boy will be taught that this is not different. The women is not different from men. Don't see this person as a sexual object.
Right, welcome everybody to Man in the Arena. This is where we discuss everything that's of interest in the world. Now, we all know there are major elections coming up this year, not just in South Africa, but all over the world. We've got the US, we've got India, we've got the UK, but the big one for us as South Africans is obviously South African elections in 2024. Now, one of the problems we're having is that the youth aren't registering, and they're certainly not voting. So we here at Man in the Arena are going to discuss what is going on. Now, we've got three exciting, young, vibrant guests. And being the gentleman, we're going to start with the lady to my right. They're just going to tell us a little bit about themselves, who they are, what they do, and how they are going to make our South Africa a better place.
Okay, I am Anathi Majeke. I am a local government councillor and also the chief whip of the official opposition in Buffalo City Metropolitan Municipality. Now, I've been in politics for the past 9 years. Believe it or not, I'm still a very young person. But the one reason that I got into politics is I've always been interested in what's happening within our society and what difference can I try to actually effect without just being on the sidelines and allowing life to happen to me, but have an active voice and be an active citizen, because I believe in being a very participant and active citizen. So I got into politics, started out as a branch member, went in as a branch chairperson, became the Democratic Alliance provincial youth chairperson at some point. I've worked at the legislature quite extensively. I've been a councillor for the past 7 years this year. So it's been very exciting, but it's also quite alarming, the number of youth that is still not interested in politics, and that also has this notion that politics is only about the politicians, and they fail to understand that politics happens to you every single day. The fact that we have NSFAS and the fact of the lack of funding, the fact of whether or not you have access to textbooks within our high school systems, the fact whether or not you have actually working infrastructure within our high schools, the fact that we have working roads or we don't, those are all the things that actually do affect us. And the one way that we're able to hold the government accountable is through our voice, and that is through our voting.
There we go. Now you can see why she's the chief whip. It's like she's taking over the show already. So, welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting ourselves to the show. My name is Phumlani Msenge. I'm born and bred in Tata, the former part of Transkei of the province. I actually joined politics at a very tender age. At the time it was out of curiosity, but I became more involved in the student movement through SASCO, which I've led until the provincial level. Then I'm still in politics currently, actively in the ANC. Not only that, but also active in the knowledge production, because I believe also knowledge is power. I believe also knowledge is power. What became as a pushing factor for me to be part of politics was actually my struggles, which are common in our black and African society, what we daily confronted with, issues of abject poverty, issues of unemployment, issues of inequality. Those are driving force for me to be in the struggle. So that they are ultimately resolved and our people are prosperous.
Here we go. Thank you.
And pushing for absolute non-racial society.
There we go. And last but certainly not least is this almost hulk of a man sitting here. Lamarck.
Thank you, Damesh. Thank you for inviting me to the show. My name is Lamarck Stewart. I'm currently a ward councillor in BCMM. I'm 28 years old and originally from East London. I've been late in the game in politics, not like my colleagues here. I've only been involved in politics for the last 3 years. The reason why I joined politics is that I believe that everyone should have a voice. And coming from a background where my family has an MPO, we used to work always on the ground, and I could see the abject poverty and the absolute desperation that people are facing at the bottom. And I realized that politics is the only way to make a change. And I believe that if you're not interested in politics, politics is interested in you. And I believe that as a youngster, we need to get involved in politics. And as you can see, we're all young people. Many people think politics are just for the old, which is not. And it's about time that we stand up and realize that we're the only ones that can make a change for the future. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, so now here's an interesting thing you just brought up is the youth are going to change the country, they're going to fix the country. What are your thoughts on age limits for people in parliament? Because sometimes you see somebody sitting in parliament from whatever political party, they're like 75, 80, and they've been there before WhatsApp even came. You know, they were there maybe when rainbows were black and white and not color, you know, so far back. Anati?
For me, I do believe we can have a diverse set of people when it comes to politics. I don't want to just put it across for only parliament or the legislatures, but also in council. I have a mentor. He's 78 years old. He has over 30 years of experience within the local government sphere, and you're able to learn quite a lot from that person. But I think the one thing is we all have to be adaptable. We all have to be teachable, because each one needs to teach the next person. I can't believe as a young person, just because I'm currently faced with a bread and butter issues, that I know everything, that I'm the custodian of all knowledge and the custodian of everything that needs to be done on how to change things. We can impart knowledge on each other, but I think the biggest question here is what value does each person bring towards making a valuable and impactful change within society? Because we can't just also say we have young people within politics just for the sake of us ticking a box. You can't say that we have females within politics just for the sake of we're ticking a box. What value do you bring? What merit are we basing us actually electing you on? And what change will you actually be bringing on society? I think that's the question that we should actually be asking.
Absolutely. Yourself, sir, what about the ANC? Obviously, the ANC Youth League was a ferocious animal that gave rise to some truly, truly great leaders. What are your thoughts on the youth coming in, taking over? The old guard needs to step back. Should they step back? Should the youth take over completely? What are some of your thoughts on the youth versus the, let's call them the experienced?
No, probably what we can start on is that our democracy is operating on a principle of non-discrimination, regardless of age, regardless of race, regardless of class, regardless of gender. Now, that being the case means that really the space should be open for everyone, regardless of all what I have mentioned. Nonetheless, in the ANC, we have a principle of a generational mix at the current moment, wherein, while there is still a leadership that was there during the time of the struggle prior 1994, that now that generation be infused with, there is that knowledge transmission. And we also believe in the institutional memory that as young as we are, but we've got to learn from the old in terms of other experiences, in terms of how to drive the struggle and all that. So that's the first part. The second part would be that for quite some time the ANC Youth League has not been in existence. It's almost like 12 years now, since 2012, disbandment of the Youth League. Now we have Youth League in place, which means that now the youth voice within the ANC is coming up very strongly. Issues of young people are raised strongly. I'm sure with the coming up manifesto of the ANC, you will see youth issues raised and government or the leading party giving commitments to resolve such issues faced by young people. So ours is a generational mix. so that we're able to garner enough experience to run the country. As well as young people now are the most literate in society population in terms of the ratios and all that. So it means that now young people as well must also form part of governance because of their education, because of their creativity, because of their energy. And now the population is becoming younger.
Yeah.
So it means that we'll need more young people taking over so that decisions that are taken, long-term decisions, at least they reflect such a youthful population that we have in the country. So it's not a total takeover, but it started a generational mix.
So what we're getting from the two of you that have spoken is it's not necessarily the problem with somebody being old. There's a perception out there in the public that the politicians that have been there forever, and there isn't a change. So, but what we're saying is, if you are bringing value to the system, that's what we want. You know, Lamarck, for example, you're a young man, and you're already a ward councillor. Just explain to everybody out there, what is a ward councillor?
So, a ward councillor, I represent, for example, Ward 4. I represent a certain group of people that elected me at the 2021 local government elections. So basically, I advocate for them through to the municipality. So I'm the link between the community and the municipality. So my role is basically to sort out service delivery issues. And basically, when it comes to the budgets and all of that, I'm the steerhead of that. And I host meetings 4 times a year. And I generally get the concerns of the community and raise it with the municipality.
Okay. So now everybody's watching the podcast and we're excited. There's young people, there's blood coming up, and but a lot of our youth just seem to be disillusioned. They're lost. They don't know where to go. We've got one of the highest unemployment rates for the youth. How are we going to solve this? How are we going to even attempt to solve this, Anati?
Are we trying to solve the voter apathy or the unemployment?
Well, let's start with the unemployment, because I think once people have a job, they feel a sense of worth, then we can look. We can obviously discuss. This whole podcast is aiming towards getting the youth to vote. We're going to discuss that, but it's going to be intertwined. So let's tackle the unemployment. What are your thoughts? Your personal thoughts? Maybe you want to talk about it from the DA. How are we going to fix this ticking time bomb that has probably exploded already?
Okay. We've seen a lot of examples, let's say Venezuela, when it comes to unemployment and how the youth literally just went and flooded parliament to ask for change to actually be within effect. We've seen the rise of fees must fall, and it's also something that's going to be happening this year with all the NSFAS cuts that we've had. So that's also another ticking time bomb. But now when it comes to unemployment, we all do understand quite well that government is not an employer. But government should be creating a conducive enough environment to ensure that businesses actually want to come and invest within the country, within our provinces, within our local government spheres, so that we are able to actually create sustainable employment. I don't want to just say employment, but sustainable employment, so the young people and also the generational mix and also the missing middle are able to actually fend for themselves. That's the biggest problem. But South Africa has a number of issues, and we've seen how much we've had a lot of disinvestment, especially as it pertains to corruption and load shedding, which is the elephant in the room. You will not have any businesses actually willing to come and invest within the long term in South Africa when you still have all of these issues, infrastructural issues that we're not willing to change. And we've had a very good example within the Eastern Cape where the DA actually does govern, where we've seen that they've taken actually constructive and concisive and decisive decisions to ensure that this is how we curtail and this is how we curb the effect that load shedding has not only on businesses but on actual residents. These are the things that we try to put forth to ensure the youth is actually able to capacitate themselves. So we don't cultivate and create a welfare state where people are simply just asking for funds to be coming in the entire time and they don't have anything that they can actually do with their hands. Now, Mark will also be able to elaborate on it further. There's a very big problem that we try to fix with the EPWP. But now what you're finding with the EPWP is that it's very politically based. It's not a matter of ensuring that our youth are actually upskilled and they have a skill by the time that they actually leave the EPWP sector. You have people that are simply put into grass cutting or any other thing. They don't have a skill that they can actually use the next day. So now they're actually always having to beg the ward councillor or anyone else, put me in a job, which they'll have for the next 10 months, and then what happens with that? So we need to fix what the actual issues are, and the biggest issue is corruption, which has also caused the imploding issue that we've had with load shedding.
Yeah. You know, so if you're watching the show, I mean, there's 2 blue, 1 yellow, but as I said before, this is not a pro-DA or any pro-political party. So, sorry, I was just looking at my cameraman. He's telling me how long I have to go before he runs out of electricity. Running out talking about electricity. So Phumlani, I'm sure we can all agree that regardless of political affiliation or gender or anything like that, we're all on the same page here when it comes to youth unemployment. We need to find a solution, don't we?
Yes, definitely. We need to find a solution, a sustainable one that will be effective. I wouldn't really say it's an issue of unemployment, but I would say it's a lack of economic opportunities. Because not everyone is looking for employment. I think that mentality needs to be addressed properly. But as well, one of the things which I think our government must forge forward with is industrialization. Opening up industries, opening up factories and all that, so that there are major economic activities happening in our country that will boost our economy, that will create employment opportunities. I think that's a basic one. That basic one will mean that as well we need to check the issues of economic imbalances, which is very critical where our economy is located, so that the black and Africans in particular, which are the majority, they get access to that, the mainstream economic activities. That's primary for me, where I stand. Issues of employment will be secondary once that is achieved. Issues of ensuring that we attract investment is very create a proper economic environment for investment attraction will be very good, for which I think currently we're doing well. I mean, our country is stable politically. Our country is a policy certainty. I think that one at a political level is well and fine. However, a lot still needs to be done. Issues of load shedding still needs to be addressed with a very decisive action. Issues of corruption, I mean, at least with the state capture report and all that, we are seeing progress as compared to previous years. So my sense is that at least government is doing well, just needs to focus on load shedding, make sure that is addressed, because even ourselves, everyone is affected, poor or rich, is affected by issue of load shedding. It must be responded and concluded.
Yeah, you know, there's a generation of kids these days that have grown up in South Africa that don't know South Africa without load shedding. If you're 10 years old, you don't know what load shedding is. For example, when I'm driving in East London or King Williamstown, we are so good as South Africans at using robots as four-way stops now. We have just become so used to it. In fact, a couple of days ago, I got to an intersection and I just drove off again, thinking it was a four-way stop. Meanwhile, the robots were actually working. So load shedding is just part and fabric of my life now, you know. Lamarck, as a ward councillor, are you involved in any way in the unemployment drive? Is there anything you can do, or is this something much higher up at the parliamentary level, at the business level?
So as my colleague was saying, from the ward we have an EPWP project. But many of the people in the ward see this as employment. To me, this is just a project for 10 months where they do not get skills whatsoever.
Okay.
The resources are not even provided to those participants to work. So I was just going to allude to what my colleague was saying now, that he's saying that everything is stable in this country. I don't think things are stable when you're sitting with unemployment rate above 30% and an expanded unemployment rate of over 40%, where people who are looking for work have actually given up looking for work. If you look at the state of our country, the state of our SOEs, they've all gone hayway. PRASA, SAA, the post office, for example. So we're in a state of crisis in this country, and we as the youth need to make a difference and make a change and realize that this current government will not take us forward, and it's time for change.
Well, what I love about the conversation we're having here is that you've got an ANC guy here and you're speaking openly. You know, folks, this could not have happened 60 years ago. We could not have had a young black lady, a young black man, and a colored man. You know, I believe in the UK, in the States, you can't say the word colored. You're going to be in big trouble. But we can say that here. Here we are having this vibrant discussion about how we're going to fix our country. Isn't that amazing? You know, like you said, we've got a lot of problems. But here's something, Lamarck. Is it possible that something is bad but getting better? In other words, improvement. You say you don't see an improvement. In other words, things are they're bad and they're getting worse?
Yes, if you look at, for example, I was listening on the radio yesterday that the Eastern Cape provincial legislature, they were talking regarding the scholar transport. They're actually worried about how the children are going to get to school tomorrow because there's no budget. So to me, and everyone can see, if you look at all the towns and cities, if you drive in the Eastern Cape, for example, they're all run down. There's no infrastructure, everything is collapsing. We drive in BCM here, for example, the long grass everywhere. So to me, things are just getting worse and not better, unfortunately.
No, thanks. Probably it was just an issue of context on the stability part, because my focus on that was that there is political stability in the country.
Okay.
There is no violence, there is no civil war, nothing. Which in the context of attracting investors is very critical. When I was saying that there is policy certainty in the country, which caters almost all sectors, that's good for investment attraction as well. Those are issues which I spoke about, stability. Obvious issues of unemployment remains challenges, issues of service delivery, though they are strides, you know, probably we come from different backgrounds. When today government says that we are worried that we might be falling below budget for school transport. At the time I was still going to school, I used to walk. There was not even an issue of budget. There was just no school as transport. So that discussion that things are not improving. I mean, I'm making an example about myself that there was not even that discussion about the budget that is falling short, but there was just no talk or anything about school as transport. So that's another part. What is very critical in our country, you know, calling for change. We always call for change. But what are we? What is that we are going to replace the incumbent with? Is there anything better? Is there any remarkable strides that we can say what will replace this government with? Has made A, B, C, and D.
Well, this is where the whole discussion is revolving around, is youth apathy when it comes to voting. You know, people watching this say, "Oh, you politicians are all the same. We see you every 5 years when there's an election. You visit us. You talk to us, but then you get your position in parliament or legislature or council. Then we never see you again." Anati?
Okay, I think I need to correct a notion that's very disingenuous. We need to realize that as government, we're accountable to the people because they're the ones that voted for us, and we're also accountable to them to show them how exactly it is that we've spent the public purse, number one. When you have a number of instances in year upon year, you have the school infrastructure grant that's been taken back because the Eastern Cape has failed to spend it. That is a very big issue. When you have year upon year, you have a scholar transport issue, and kids are still having to walk 30 kilometers plus to actually go to their schools. They are riddled with crime along the way. They are raped. They have absolutely no food, yet you do have the capacity to ensure that there is food for those kids because they have no other source of food for themselves the entire day. You need to be accountable to that. And unfortunately, the current government that is in power is disingenuous. And they're saying, just be grateful for the little bit that we do give you, even though you have put all the confidence within us to be able to effect the change. Even when we're failing, say, no, at least you are able to do one, even if you are not able to do the other 10. That's disingenuous. So this is why we're saying we need to move away from the fact that we have so much apathy and think that politics is only about the politicians. It's about us. That's why I always help on the bread and butter issues. Umntana waseziphunzana who's not able to have access to NSFAS because there are so many budget cuts is being affected by politics. Umntana waseziphunzana is not able to access education and actually go to a TVET college over and above being able to go to Fort Hare because there's an ailing infrastructure at a TVET college or there are issues of access. That is a political decision. And we have people that we should be holding accountable when it comes to that. So this is what the youth actually needs to be conscientized on. This is what we as the politicians have a responsibility to educate them on, because we are not any better than them. We have been put by the actual public there to be their voices where they are voiceless, to actually put in effect a change when it comes to the legislation, when we see that the legislation is against the people and it's not for the people. That's why it's so important, especially at a local government level, as councillors, as more especially as Lamarck is a ward councillor, that we're able to be there and be a voice for the people and be genuine. And not come with false promises that you know there's absolutely no way that you'll be able to fulfill. Because this is where the distrust also comes in. Do your level best, but be open to the people, be transparent to the people, ensure that you know what the principles are when it comes to good governance, and be accountable. That's the most important thing.
You know, that's a great soundbite. And obviously, everybody watching can hear that you're all in the political sphere and you know how to speak. But that doesn't take away from the fact that trust in government in all political parties seems to be waning. For some reason, the parties up there are not resonating with, for a better word, us down here. You know, so there is a problem. And we spoke about you spoke about children walking to school and being robbed and being raped, and I think we can all agree crime is bad in this country. So here's the question now. Here's the question: why can't we have mob justice in South Africa? Isn't that a form of true democracy where the people have a say? Because in a mob situation, the majority rule, and there's only one person, the dissenting voice. That's probably the other person that's going to get beaten up. I mean, the criminals hardly get caught. When they do, they go to a justice system that's not working. If you order a pizza, you're going to get the pizza before the police come. And let me just make this quite clear. I have absolute admiration for our men and women in blue. They're working under tireless conditions. They don't have equipment. They don't have vehicles. Whatever the problem is, it's still good to see a policeman or a woman when you're in trouble, you know. But the reality is, people now are frustrated. So if somebody robs me as I leave the studio now, why shouldn't I just get a group of people to beat them up? Why can't we have that? Because that's true democracy. That's the voice of the people. Phumlani?
No, thanks. You know, one will be sold to that idea, because really, one would have thought that with the failing justice system in some areas, that's the solution.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest danger to that will be when you accuse the wrong person.
Okay.
You know, there was once an idea of a death sentence, but what was then foreseen as going to be imposing a serious danger will be to kill someone who didn't do anything. And you haven't proven and you haven't done any thorough investigation to make sure that indeed that's a culprit. So that's where the danger lies with regards to that. My sense on this other part of under expenditure and all that is that I guess I always believe that we've got to improve our systems. We've got to improve our governance systems such that our planning, our budgeting is aligned and our expenditure is aligned. You know, the part which my sister was speaking about, the budget of education which was taken back to National Treasury, is a very painful one. In particular when a budget is already committed to certain projects. I think there we need to go back to National Treasury and maybe to make some changes in their financial systems and all that, so that when a budget is committed, that be not taken back to National Treasury, because the project is identified. Probably the stage is now which the department is at the procurement level, almost in the finalization and awarding of the project to a certain contract. So we got to improve our system so that at least that does not happen. And also we got as well, as we improve our systems, we monitor our expenditure patterns, because that's very important, because we can't just spend only to realize that we still have a quarter, but we don't have money in the coffers because we push to spend. So we've got to also to monitor our.
Phumlani, I'm having a good laugh because, you know, me being an ex-politician and listening to you guys, I love the way that we started the conversation on mob justice and then we went to the budget. It's great because you're looking at an overall point of view. Anati, I saw you're shaking your head saying, Dharmesh, what are you talking about mob justice? Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It's just the context. Mob justice, no?
No, we are not vigilantes.
Yeah.
This is not Gotham City. You are not Batman. So we cannot advocate for them for that. Sorry, as the DA, we believe in in guarding the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So the Constitution does say that you need to go through the proper processes. Someone needs to be booked and actually be told what their crime is. The judicial system also needs to be in effect when it comes to that. We do also realize that there are a lot of issues and a lot of inefficiencies as it pertains to SAPS, for one. A lot of issues because the SAPS is also very corrupt. There's been a lack of oversight as it comes from Minister Bheki Cele when it comes to SAPS. You've seen SAPS that has not been properly capacitated. They don't have the proper resources within the police stations. You can be here right here at Fleet Street. You might be robbed right here in studio. It might take them 3 hours plus if they even do come at all.
Well, that's my point.
So that's
If they don't come, then why can't I do it myself?
We cannot advocate for mob justice because that is not right. In some instances, someone can simply decide to accuse me of rape or any other kind of crime, and the mob just simply comes in. They don't ask any questions. They simply just want to punish. So we always have to believe in the good of society and allow the processes to properly take place. Even though we do believe in the good of society, we also do need to hold everyone that needs to be held accountable. So we need to hold the police system accountable. We also need to tighten up the judiciary system and ensure that the systems and processes are actually working for the people that it should be working for. Because there's a lot of injustice within our justice system.
Great. Lamarck, I see you itching. You got your hand up.
Just to the issue with mob justice, I just think people are just so frustrated and are tired and are angry. I was reading an article the other day. SAPS, for example, up to 30% of their vehicles are not operating. We have thousands of less detectives today. So our justice system is not flowing because there's not enough detectives on the cases to investigate these cases. So people are fed up, people are tired, and if you phone the police, they do not come. Now we're relying on private security. Private security are getting tired because they're saying it's not their job or their function to do what SAPS is supposed to do. Bheki Cele came to our police station in my ward, for example, and every time at our CPF meetings, I ask, is there any feedback? No feedback, no feedback. So to me, it was just a covered-up exercise or just a visit,
The problem is crime is out of control, regardless of political affiliation, how much money you make it. Crime is affecting everybody. It's like cancer. We all know somebody that's got cancer, who's had cancer. It's almost like a cancer of our society. But now, when we're talking about food, and we're talking about security, and then you see these, let's say the Western countries, they are at a point now where if you ask somebody, a senator or congressman, define a man and a woman. What is a man? What is a woman? I mean, these sort of conversations we haven't had here in South Africa. Do you see yourselves as politicians? Are people starting to have these conversations about gender and gender roles and that sort of thing? Or are we just still busy trying to fix the basics like water and electricity? Or are these gender topics starting to come up in the work that you do in society? Anati?
Okay. I have had a lot of experience with working with the US. I've visited the US. I've had an opportunity to actually had conversations with some senators. And I want us to put it away from it being a Western conversation. It is a conversation for humans.
Okay.
If one decides to identify as a man, as a woman, as non-binary, if they are asexual, I believe in some instances it's not a choice, but it's how they were born. So we need to be sensitive in us saying that we respect and we recognize everyone, no matter how it is that they identify as. We leave it as that.
Okay.
It becomes a big problem when you have a lot of discriminatory views and attacks against those people, because they are humans just as we are. They deserve to be protected. Their dignity has to be protected as per the Constitution, the same as everyone else. But now the issue is we have had a lot of race politics. We've identified the intersectionality when it comes to the gay and the lesbian movement, but now it's become such a taboo when it comes to transgender, whereas we're saying that intersectionality matters, whether you're black, you're white, you're female, or whatever it is, that matters. Yet this is a very big problem, and we cannot have intersectionality if we don't recognize the rights of the transgender movement. So we always need to take that into cognizance, especially in the African culture. We've always had people who identify themselves as being non-binary. We've always had women who are deemed to be a lot more masculine, or men who are deemed to be a lot more feminine. So this is a phenomena that has been happening throughout the years. It's just that we didn't have an actual word for it.
Okay, but now we've got to have some sort of practicality down on the kitchen top table sort of limit, because if, for example, what happens if somebody walks into your caucus? By the way, a caucus is a meeting of politically minded people. It normally happens at a party level. What happens if somebody walks into your caucus and says, Anathi Majeke, I identify as the chief whip, please step aside? What happens then?
You are being very nefarious, because there's no such thing. There's no such thing. I have been elected and appointed as the chief whip. Whereas when I have been deemed to be a lot more masculine than a lot of feminine women, because I'm very dominant. So that is a trait that I have within me. Whereas if I can say today that I identify as a man, Lamar can't question that. Pumlani can question that. It's what I identify as. It's what I see myself as. So it's different when you've been elected into a particular position or appointed into a particular position. This is my self-identity, and no one else can question that.
Okay. Well, everybody has. If you can put your hand up, you're gonna.
No. Just on that was it's one of the things which I think all of us can agree that the sitting government has been successful on ensuring that there is non-gender kind of society that we have.
Discrimination.
Non-gender discrimination or what. ANC is going further in its ranks to say the LGBTQI plus community be represented in all structures, including its deployment to government. So that not only that the male and the female kind of thing does not represent the rights and the interest of the gender, of the LGBTQI plus community, but also they are part and parcel of decision making, so that they are able to influence the society that they would want to have.
Okay. Yeah, look, so bottom line is here, we're in this together. You know, regardless of race, creed, gender, religion, social income, whatever your status is, this is our beautiful country, this is our beautiful Eastern Cape. So lady and gents, we have been discussing all of these great interesting topics about where our country is going. And as we said during the break, you know, sometimes it's good to be spoiled for choice, by choice. But we've got so many new political parties out there. I mean, some of them are one-man parties. Anathi?
Okay, we need to make a distinction between what it actually means to have a democratic society, right? So our constitution enables for anyone to have a registered party if they want to contest elections. We also have it in law that we're running more of a constituency-based model. So I may even decide that I'm not part of a political party, but I want to run as part of a constituency to have a seat in parliament. That's all good and well. But I think the one thing that the voter base needs to be educated on is, especially on these up-and-coming smaller political parties, you dilute a lot of your votes. And we've seen it happens on a number of instances, and that's why we've had to form a lot of coalitions. You must be very heavily educated on what it is that you're actually needing from your political party. When it comes to their policies, you must be very well read when it comes to their policies, what it is that they can actually offer you, what are your policy imperatives? What are you looking for? What kind of change are you looking for in society? Because you have a lot of these political parties that simply come up and say, you just need to vote for us and run on a populist approach. You haven't seen them in actual government. You haven't seen what it is that they can actually offer. You haven't seen any kind of policy offers when it comes from these political parties. So that's a very important thing. I do not disregard the notion that anyone may decide that they want to be in an elected position. But as the citizenry, we need to be educated on what it is that we're actually looking for. What kind of change are we actually looking for within our society?
Pumlani, what's your thought? We see like 80 parties on the ballot. Some of them I've never even seen before. What are your thoughts on this?
Maybe one will argue that it's democracy maturing.
Could be possibly.
Yeah, because it allows everyone. I mean, our system, the electoral system, allows everyone. So long that you can meet a certain threshold in terms of your signature campaign, so that you can be on the ballot. But as it relates to policy differences or ideological differences, I say that mostly it's just duplication of some sort. Nothing new, nothing interesting except the populistic and the opportunistic elements that we see. Otherwise, it's our democracy that we fought for. That's what it brings to us. And we can't say no one must register new parties. We've fought enough now.
Okay.
People
So
can
then,
and as well.
Pumlani, here's the question then. If I apply for a job at a bank or at any sort of institution, you need to have some sort of experience, you need to have some sort of qualification that's related to that job. But at this stage, anybody can run to be a member of parliament or legislature or councillor. Do you think there should be, at least you have a matric, or maybe in parliament you should have a university degree? Do you think that's going to go a long way to solving the things? Is that maybe an answer?
Anything which requires certain capacity or have a certain requirement, that will amount to patching, and that will not be democracy.
The reason why I'm asking is because I read an article, and I might be off on the numbers here, but I could be in the ballpark, but almost 300 city councillors in KwaZulu-Natal don't know how to read or write. How are we going to... You could resonate with the people. You could be from a village, you could absolutely understand their problems and their issues, and perhaps you are the person for the job to represent them in council, but you don't have the technical skills, the language skills, the mathematical skills. How do we bridge that divide, that somebody from a location is actually the best voice to represent them in a structure such as council or legislature or parliament, but they don't have the educational or the technical skills to get it over the line to do a good job?
Okay, I think let me speak from a perspective of internal process of the ANC firstly, and ultimately I will get into when they are in government. In the ANC, there's been an introduction of certain requirements that one must meet. Legislature and National Assembly now, we say at least post-matric. So at least you understand basics.
Okay.
That's the first part. That will also, we've introduced that in the actual fact in 2021 when we're going for local government elections, that to be a mayor, to be a speaker, there must be a certain level of education that you hold. So to bridge that gap. But as in when you happen to be a councillor or you happen to be a legislature, there are programs which are introduced by government that are aimed at capacitating public representatives. I will make a simple example. For instance, in Fort Hare, they introduced something in collaboration with SALGA in Bishop, where councillors can go and study certain qualifications there as an introduction, not really having matric, but if they have certain grades, at least they are allowed to go and study that. Then that will translate to certain higher certificate. Then that will be your matric level. Then you can go to diploma, go to degree as you advance yourself. But also there are programs which are workshop-based inductions that are aimed at schooling really a public representative at the governance level now, which I think is good. But I think if it can go further, so at least we don't have issues where you have a councillor who can't even press at the top. I mean, it becomes bad now, because it means that we'll have a lot of problems with you going forward in the society. But it's just that we can't outrightly scrap out and say those who don't have qualifications, they must not stand.
Okay, I understand it. I mean, this is democracy at play here. This is
But I think what is there now is quite good. Is quite good, which I think it must be appreciated, and everyone abides by it. That once you're elected, you go certain programs, so at least you somewhat get some interest in that.
Well, now I'm going to put you all on the spot a little bit here. A while ago, the leader of a particular party, none of your leaders, said that South Africa is not ready for a white president. I mean, that opens up a whole can of worms here. If we're a non-racial society, could we have a white president? Do the scars of apartheid run so deep? Or is it time to say, fit for purpose, the best person to lead us? Or are we really saying that we cannot and will not have a white president in the near future for South Africa? There's a lot to unpack here, Lamarck.
If I can just say, no matter what the race of the president is, if he's the best or him or her is the best person to do the job, race should not matter. And it was very, I won't say disingenuous for that person to say that a white person cannot run the country. It should be based on your credentials and can you take the country forward.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I'm just thinking, you go to a little village somewhere, you speak to an old gogo, and her husband or her son was killed during the apartheid days, and she's worked really hard, and she's not really coming up in life because whatever problems, and she says to you, the last time we had a white president in this country, this is what happened, and I will never vote for I wouldn't argue with her because her pain runs so deep. But I can empathize a little bit with her, although I believe empathy is based on emotion, and emotion is a lot of the times illogical. Voters tend to make put it this way, they tend to make emotional decisions. Not?
Okay. I think that has a lot of nuances when it comes to it. And I love the fact that Lamarck also touched on the fact of gender. Some people may even say they can't have a young black woman become a president because that's going to be an issue, cultural differences or anything else that there may be. We know how patriarchy thrives, especially within our country, right? Number one. Secondly, yes, we do understand there have been issues when it comes to apartheid and everything else. That's why it also is very important for us to educate our older generation. We're not saying we're not better than them. Yes, we didn't grow up under the system, but we have other experiences that they may not necessarily have. We are a country that is based on non-racialism. We are a country that's saying we want to hold absolutely everyone accountable, whether they race, whether they gender, whether they creed, whatever else it may be. So it's also very important that we give absolutely everyone a chance if they are deserving and they've shown that they have the potential and the know-how to ensure that we actually do move the country forward. There's also something, I thought you were going to give me a chance when Phumlani was speaking. I was actually just laughing about it. The whole qualification saga. I think he omitted to say thank you to the DA because the DA is the first political party that had actually... No, it's not. I'm actually saying, I'm patting him at the back, right? Because the DA is the first party who actually introduced the whole notion of not necessarily credentials, but merit. So merit may be your skills, there may be your educational qualifications or anything else that you're able to bring forth to the party and say, this is what I can bring to ensure that I'm a vital voice to society and I'm able to be impactful within society with whatever it is that I might have. So as a DA, we don't necessarily just only focus on your educational qualifications, but anything else that you may have, your technical expertise or whatever else. But it's still a very big issue, especially in council. We have a number of councillors who don't read the agenda. They don't know what we're talking about. You'll come to them and talk about legislation and they'll tell you outright, no, as a majority, we can simply decide to vote against it because we have the numbers. They do not care to know what's within those agenda. So it's a bigger crisis. It's not just credentials. It's the type of people that we actually do elect. That's another issue that we need to be
Okay.
looking at, the morality behind who we elect. And the fact that we just want to push forward whatever it is that we want to push forward on a policy perspective, when it comes to bylaws, when it comes to budgetary constraints or the budget and how we implement it. Are we simply pushing majority or are pushing the law? And there have been a number of instances, I can quote quite a couple of them, especially in council, where you've had that being pushed and being touted more than what is right and what is within the law.
Okay.
So that's something that we need
Yeah.
to be looking at.
Pumlani, not to sidestep you here, but do you have any thoughts, if any, about that whole South Africa's not ready for a white president ticking time bomb question?
No. I come from a school of thought or from an organization which teaches us of non-racialism and non-sexism, both in terms of leadership and all that. I think where you were referencing is about going to a certain village, then you meet a certain household there. And I think it's all about sectoral ambitions, sectoral experiences, which each individual has. One will not believe that a white person will represent black person's interest. I think that's where we need to be very critical about, given obviously the issues of experiences and all that, or the past, where we are coming from, and all that. But equally, given where we want to take the country to, at an ideological point of view, that we still have these imbalances which are illegals of the past, which we still need to level. So one will not really have a thing that a white man or white lady will go with what we need to go with as a country in terms of rectifying such imbalances.
Okay.
I think that's where it all arises. Otherwise, where I'm coming from as an organization, we had very progressive white people in the ANC, the likes of your George Slovos. Very progressive. Currently, there is John Jeffrey, who's the Deputy Minister of Justice and Correctional Service. Progressive white men. So I'm simply saying, and the women as well. We had white women marching in 1955 against
what we're saying here is, I think we can all broadly agree, we want fit for purpose. We
Yes,
want the
fit
best
for
people
purpose.
to
And to
best
serve-
people to
to
serve and to
the
lead us.
majority, to serve in particular the majority interest of our country. So if all is that fine, then we are good to go
Okay.
with such individuals.
Now, earlier in the show we discussed mob justice, and I was told I can't be Batman. Can't be Batman. Should we, because absolutely crime is completely out of control here, should we bring back the death penalty? Pumlani?
I think I made a reference to
Yeah.
the death penalty at that time that I think it should not be brought back because even in our constitution we have what is called the right to life of everyone, regardless whether you committed a crime or not.
But if you look at Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Iran, if you commit a crime, they either chop your hand off or you're hanged or whatever. Crime is almost non-existent there. What happens if put it this way, what happens in a democracy if 80% of the people phone into this show and say, we have a referendum, and 80% of South Africans say, we want the death penalty? Would it be okay then? Because it's democracy. No?
We have the constitution which safeguards against that. And I don't think we can compare the government of Saudi Arabia with South Africa. We are democracy.
But there's no crime. There's
No,
hardly crime
but
in Saudi Arabia.
It's a false narrative to make a comparison between the two.
We-
Because we are a constitutional democracy. They are not.
Yes,
They are
but
more autocratic.
We're a
autocratic.
constitutional democracy where crime is rampant. How do we stop three-year-old babies are raped and murdered and 90-year-old grannies are raped?
Okay.
How do we?
Can I respond
Nothing
to that?
is stopping these criminals. Why can't we bring back the death penalty?
Can I respond to that? Number one, I'll base everything that I'm saying on the Constitution, right? We have a Constitution for a reason. As Pumlani rightfully said, the Constitution is there to safeguard the lives of everyone. And it is simply not evidence-based to say that the death penalty is a deterrent to crime. The issue that we have is the fact that we have a failing criminal justice system. Lamarck touched on it. We don't have proper resources. The detectives are not able to investigate, and also further, the NPA is not able to prosecute those cases. People are able to run away scot-free. But even with those that have been prosecuted, we do not have a rehabilitative criminal justice system. Because when you put someone in jail, you're meant to be rehabilitating them. It's not meant to be punitive. It's not meant to be a punishment. I'm someone who believes in criminal justice reform, and it's something that our constitution is also based on. So if we were to focus on simply that, how do we rehabilitate people who have been in prison so that they don't come back within society and perpetuate the same crimes? And what have we done, what has the government failed on to ensure that our society is not riddled with crime? Do we have recreational facilities? Do we have sporting facilities? Do we have things that the youth are able to do in order to ensure that they actually occupy themselves? Do we have an expanding employment rate? Let's not talk about unemployment. Employment rate. Do we have resources to ensure that we have enough people within the employment system? Are they able to fend for themselves? Because those are the issues. So simply going towards the death penalty being a deterrent, and especially counter-crossing it with an autocratic government, this is not it.
Do you think most people would rather have an autocratic government but live in safety, as opposed to living in democracy but being completely at the mercy of criminals?
Okay,
Yeah.
can I?
Okay.
I'll come to your last point. Just I wanted to touch on this one of criminal justice and vis-a-vis the crime rate that we have. I think I agree fully with Anati when she talks about issues of unemployment being main contributors to crime in our society. I mean, our people are frustrated by a lot of social ills which are there. If you check the background of criminal offenders, their background is bad. How does that affect their psychological being for them to be perpetuating crime in the manner in which they are doing? That's the first point. The social ills, which I'm seeing that are somewhat a main factor. But what are the corrective measures? What corrective measures are the justice system? But what are the preventive measures that we right? To establish a crime-free society is not only about taking someone and put that someone into jail. In society generally, there's been a moral decay, which is somewhat one of the primary challenges which we are confronted with. If we can have a moral regeneration, vigorous program run by government, run by society of moral regeneration, I think we can go somewhere where a young boy will be taught that this is not different. Women is not different from men. Don't see this person as a sexual object. Teach young boys at that age. I think we will be going to a correct direction if we take it from that level, so that we are able now to have a sustainable. I mean, we'll be complaining about issues of police not arriving on time, police not having enough resources to respond to high level of crime that we are facing. Yes, we agree that criminal justice is not so just.
Yeah,
there are a lot of insufficiencies. But what I wanted also to flag out strongly is issue of under budgeted departments such as Department of Correctional Service, such as Department of Police. Because calling Begicele to come to a police station because you have got one bag there to go and arrest criminals or to patrol around. Begicele won't go and say that, okay, let me take this money even if it's budgeted for something else. So the issue of budgeting as well comes to play, very critical in fight of crime.
Mark, I saw you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, if I can just use this as a prime example, for example, if we take a young person that is a drug addict, for example, and they come from a poor family, unfortunately, there's no programs in place for them to be assisted. They will say it's so called for the privilege to be helped. So what happens is that they stay in that cycle, and that is when they start to commit crime, and they take part in activities that is not lawful. For example, gangs,
yeah.
For example, and that is when the shootings are happening because they are desperate to try and make a living for themselves. So government needs to step up and put preventative measures in place and try and stop the issues at the cause before they get out of control.
Okay, so
I think one.
Yeah,
sorry,
Nati.
sorry to get in there. I think one question that Ukumlani was going to respond to, but he didn't. If you are saying that, if your question is asking, would people rather be safer in an autocratic government, we would not be here.
Yes.
yeah, we wouldn't
We
be
would
here,
not
but-
be
but-
here. We cannot. We can.
Absolutely.
That
Point
would
taken.
mean, as a woman, I can't be here. I can't be vocal. I'd
Point
probably
taken.
have to be wearing some other very conservative kind of garment. I'd have to be at home,
Okay.
tending to my husband and everything else. I can't have a voice. So that's the thing that autocratic
You
nationalism comes
Yeah,
with.
for sure.
So that's something we need
Yeah.
to think about. It's not all
Roses.
Roses
Yeah,
and
yeah,
fairies.
yeah, yeah,
It's not.
absolutely.
No. Thanks for that. I think I forgot to respond that in an autocratic society, you must know that as a human, you have lost part of you.
Okay, absolutely.
no rights.
It means that now it's no longer about you, but about those. You might not even have these many parties that you have choice of voting for in an autocratic society. It means that your views will be censored. It means that the media will be limited of what it reports to the public. That's autocratic society. Now, are you still feeling safe? You don't,
Yeah, no,
because
point-
you have
point
lost
taken.
part
Point-
of you
yeah.
as a human, which you must be able to have wide range of choices. You must live freely. You must have free movement. In an autocratic society, if you move from Eastern Cape to Western Cape, you must be known by the system that you are moving from point A to point B, and you must be known why are you moving to that place. So that if you have certain agendas which are not in favor of the current government, then you are denied that opportunity to go that side. So I'm simply saying that you must know that you have lost yourself as a human.
Yeah, point
if you go
taken.
that
I personally, I would rather live in a democratic society and all its trimmings and all its negatives, and hopefully it comes right over time and we move forward. So you mentioned discipline, children, and the school. Why don't we bring back conscription so that when you leave school at matric, you go for a year to the army or you do a job, so we instill confidence in you, we do a skills trade, we teach you manners, we teach you how to be a good citizen. Why can't we bring back conscription? We make you healthier and fitter along the way, and then after that you can go to university, you can travel the world, but it'll make you a little bit of a better citizen.
Okay, I would argue, how healthy are you if you're being conscripted into the army and you're coming back with PTSD? You are not treated for any of that, because we've seen it, especially from the US perspective, how they've come and the quality of life that they've had to have. What I would argue is even better, we need to ramp up on our systems that we actually do currently have. In my time, we had...
In your time, you're young. You're young.
We had, when the SABC was still a lot more functional, we had Soul City.
Yes.
You were taught about HIV, you were taught about gay and lesbian rights. We had, I'm forgetting what this magazine was called, but you were taught about AIDS and everything else. You had a lot of community radio stations that instilled all of that thought within you. But now the unfortunate thing is we have a lot of TikTok and a lot of misinformation. Because I may have 100,000 followers, whatever I say goes, they believe it. A lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation, right? We have the TVET sector, which used to be so good for kids who wanted to do things with their hands. So your plumbers, your electricians, your mechatronics, whatever else it is, you had that and it was working. So you knew everyone who doesn't necessarily want to have a formal educational qualification would be able to do that. You had so many resources. You had our NPOs who are properly funded. So if that is something you want to venture
no conscription,
to, no conscription.
Fix the basics.
Fix the
Fulani?
basics, yeah.
Army guys strong, army women strong. We'll defend the country if we ever get attacked.
No, I mean, America did that. They used to force young people to join the army during the Second World War and all that, until the end of Cold War, recently in the 80s. It's not good. It's not good. I mean, we can maybe focus on issues of child development.
Okay.
The first step, go to the primary. Also focus on our education content. What are we taught in school? Are we taught manners there? Is it part of, I mean, don't tell me about life orientation. I don't think it's enough. Also, is our mass media focused on building society? or is now profit driven. I mean, Anati speaks about the programs which were there before. But now what we see are programs which are to make money for the mass media only, not to build society in the manner in which all of us will wish. So if we can focus on that, I mean, also you can't take me to an army whereas I don't want to. I mean, we've got a freedom of choice now. I mean, back to our constitution, what it says. So it's not an ideal approach. There are better ways which we can instill discipline, which I spoke about, childhood development, education content and all that.
So you, Lamarck, you nodding. So I guess all three of you are the same. Listen, let's leave conscription. Let's leave the army out of this.
Yeah. I was going to say we all have a freedom of choice, and to me, if our education system was working and functioning, all of our, I know back in the days, our mothers and fathers used to go to the nursing schools and to the teachers' colleges, and they became teachers and nurses. I think they still do have it now, but not at a mass scale. But not those sectors, but other sectors in general, and make it easier for students and more accessible for students to go to these colleges, and that they don't have that problem and won't have that conversation. Now I feel it's a scapegoat because these systems are not in place. Now we want to bring this topic up to send people to the army, for example. So I think it comes as a result of a failing education system.
What about discipline at home? Is a parent allowed to give a child a smack on the backside when they are not behaving? You walk into a shopping center, kid is crying, or an airport, a public place, and the parent can't touch the child. We've got all these laws now. A little smack on the back to certainly not child abuse where you leave a mark, but surely there's some discipline. It's coming over the discipline. Children are undisciplined these days. In the 80s, 90s, if you spoke back to your parents, sometimes you got a slap so hard it was like a factory reset, and you don't talk back to your parents.
Okay, I think we need to differentiate between being disciplined and being abused.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, this is triggering because we allowed so many things to happen under the notion of we're being disciplined by our parents. But now we know better. Because if you simply, I do that a lot with my nieces. I'll talk to you. What you've done is not wrong. You can do things in a better way. And we also need to understand that kids have their own emotions. They should be able to express their emotions. In our time, we grew up fearful of our parents because you knew as soon as you say or do anything that is contrary to what your parent wanted you to do, you'd get smacked. That is not discipline. That is being abused, and you're being silenced. That's why you found our generation was always so angry, because you have no other way of voicing out your emotions. Whatever it is that you said, you'd get hit. So I went to a multiracial school, and at some point I came back thinking I know everything, and I said to my mom, I hate you. Oh my God, did she not show me my life? But in that way, I was trying to express my emotions to show that whatever you've done or said has hurt me, but I didn't know how to do it. Whereas in other cultures, they cultivate the whole notion of, I can discipline you, but it doesn't mean that I have to physically hit you. There are so many ways to discipline a child, and that doesn't have to happen. And I think that's why also corporal punishment within schools was also rooted out. But it's also so important that we also need to understand that morality and discipline is an all of society approach. We always say it takes a village to raise a child. I might be taught the difference between right and wrong at home, but if my friend does one or other thing, I want to emulate my friend. So we need to try as far as possible the people that we keep around us. We won't always get it right. The people that we keep around us have the same values that we do. Because I'll know if I'm asking Lamarck to babysit my daughter, whatever values I have instilled within my daughter, Lamarck will be able to do the very same thing. We know in some instances we get it wrong on a number of occasions, but I, for one, I do not advocate for beating children or anything.
Oh, they're beating a child. I'm just saying a little bit of discipline. A little bit of discipline. If
discipline can be talking to a child.
I mean, a child is going crazy at the spur. Some children are just too emotional.
That's emotion. That's why you need to understand emotional regulation and teach the child how to emotionally regulate.
Pumlani was brought up nicely. He put his hand up.
No. I think discipline is not all about beating. I mean, if I say, as we are making an example, my child misbehaving at spare, I know she or he likes going to spare.
Yeah.
I'll take some measures that day. We are not going there for about 3 months and collect yourself properly.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, after that 3 months, she or he will be fine. So I'm saying discipline is not only about beating. I mean, the corporate partnership, for it to be rooted out, for instance, in schools, we realize that now teachers go to school with their own problems. Now they take all those frustrations to learners. Those are some of the societal issues that we realize, which we have to end here. Even parents, you see your father beating you so hard such that you have some bruise, visible bruise that even your friends, they get to ask you about. Not knowing that your father maybe was suspended from work. You see, other behaviors are intrigued by some of the things that are happening in society. So we had to get rid of some of the things so that at least the society is guided and it is not going down right.
No, I hear you, but I was never ever advocating for beating a child. Just a little bit of discipline, but I know Nati's shaking her head. She says no to that. Okay, so talking about this, we've all gone through and we've discussed, it's about the upper, in fact, the whole of society being held accountable. Morality, we've spoken about that a lot. But what are we going to do when we've got one of the highest rape statistics in the world? I mean, we talk about it, we have programs about it, the president talks about it, the DA talks about it, just talk and talk and talk, and our poor women are being raped from 3 years old to 98 years old in a village. At what point do you beat up this man? At what point do you give him the death penalty? At what point, as men as well, do we take responsibility?
If I can respond to that, Ramesh, is that it comes to educating our young men and women from a young age, number one. Number two is, I'm going to repeat it again, it's the failing justice system in terms of these members or these people getting prosecuted because there's so many delays. And unfortunately, the more people we can see that have been prosecuted and being sentenced, hopefully that can be a deterrent to people in society, but sometimes that's often not the case. So it's a very difficult question to answer, to say how do you actually stop it. It's
multi-societal, from parents to grandparents to the priest to the everybody. But we must agree something needs to be done. You know, you feel worried when your niece or anybody actually is out walking around Buffalo Street late at night, this area late at night. It's you know, women shouldn't live like this, you know?
Okay.
There we go. She's
okay. No, I think for so far, I would argue that I think our justice system has been intolerant to rapists. For so far, has been intolerant, such that if you are accused at the current moment of rape, you hardly get a bail, which I think is a good step in my view. As well, the sentence for rapists were proven that they are indeed guilty is so harsh. I think that's a good step again. Yes, there are those cases of gender-based violence which are not really finding a justice response, which we need to improve on our justice on our part. I mean, government needs to really do something better than it is doing on some of the GBV-related cases. You know, I used to argue that GBV is not the one that cases are not the true reflection of what you read about, you see on TV. In townships, in villages, there are GB cases that are not reported at all. Not reported at all. Where I was shocked by the statistics, which was at some point in the years issued out by WHO, when a woman is only seen in clinic that, hey, this woman has been sexually harassed or abused. It's a very bad statistics, but it does not reflect in it does not relate to the one that we have in our justice system, that statistics. So the point is that the women as well, I think they ought to play a very critical part. It becomes very discouraging when someone gets raped and goes and withdraw the case.
I've read many cases like that.
When someone gets raped or does not get raped now, but accuses someone who didn't give her money, then some years when that individual has been sentenced, the woman goes and withdraws the case because now the guilt conscience has kicked in. That man, his future, his career is destroyed. Such cases, so I'm simply saying that even if you can go about with death penalty to fight rape and all other gender-based related cases, you must take note that there are such instances. Imagine you are killed because you are told that you have raped someone. 5 years down the line, that someone confesses elsewhere that I reported him because he didn't give me money in the following day.
So it comes down to
So we can't wake up now.
proper
from the grave.
policing, proper judges, proper investigations, because sometimes bad things happen to good
And
people.
proper conscience
Yes,
in
yes,
ourselves
yes.
as individuals, men and women.
Mm.
Proper conscience. If we can invest on building proper conscience of
Mm.
human beings, we can live a better world.
And I saw you grabbed a book
Yes,
there.
I had to. That's why I was like, I can be the last one. So this is from Uchimamanda, and it's a feminist manifesto in 15 suggestions, right? And the one thing that she suggests is that you should all be feminists. So being a feminist doesn't mean you're only a woman. You can be a feminist ally, or you can be a feminist as a man. So now, the most important thing is what we need to understand is rape is centered around control. When you rape someone, you're saying, I have that much control over you and your body. There's absolutely nothing that you can do to deter me from violating you in such a brutal and violent way, right? That's the first thing. And we can talk about the criminal justice system and everything else, but the most important thing is we need to take away our men and this notion that they have that they can control women. So this goes back to patriarchy, because rape is centered around patriarchy. And the one thing men especially need to understand, that patriarchy also works against you as men. The more you advocate for patriarchy, the more it works against you. It doesn't just work against the woman, because now it's going to say if you don't look a certain way, you don't have a certain amount of money, you don't have a certain kind of social status, you are less of a man. That's the patriarchy working against you. So what the feminist scholars have always been saying, that we are all equal, whether man or woman, and we must not allow patriarchy to thrive. So we must dismantle patriarchy first. And this starts in the grassroots. The conversations that we have with our little boys, that Anati is the female, she should be washing the dishes. Anati is the one who should be cooking. I don't cook. I don't do any of those things. I'm not domesticated. Now, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't mean that I should be doing those things. But it's the teachings that we've had in society. Those are the things that we need to unlearn. And the only way we unlearn is through reading, is through literature. I know literature is a privilege. But even with our grandmothers, our grandmothers were feminists. They didn't even understand what it meant at that point. But they were advocating for women. That's why we had the March for the Postlaws, because we believed as women we also needed to have the right in order to enable us to vote. Now, going back to the criminal justice system, and number one, the fact that we report our cases. If I were to come in here and say that I was raped by my boyfriend that I'm still so in love with, no one would believe me. Because we all know that rape is rooted in someone who doesn't know you. Your boyfriend that loves you so much, that does absolutely everything for you, cannot rape you. Or Anachi, you're the problem because you're always so vocal. What did you do to aggravate him? For him to beat you? That is a problem.
So we
We
can
don't
agree,
believe the woman, yeah.
We can agree that this is a multifaceted approach. It's got deep ramifications for our country, and it goes across political lines, gender lines, socioeconomic lines. It needs to be stopped. It needs to be fixed.
Unlearning.
Unlearning. Okay. So now, you picked up the book on feminism, and we're talking about equal rights now. So if, heaven forbid, we were to go to war, and everybody over 18 who's a registered voter needs to go to fight, will you go to war?
So you're talking about conscription again?
No. The way it started in the beginning, I'm not sure if the viewers know this, that in America initially the women were given the right to vote. And then when World War II broke out, World War I, they were all conscripted. And they said, no, we don't want to go to war. And then the government took the vote away. Because one of the privileges is, or one of the paybacks is, if you have the right to vote, you can be called up to go to war. So if you want equality, if we go to war and the government says everybody that vote, will you go to war for South Africa? Will you be equal to a man?
I think I'd even be better than a man. I think I'd even be better. But this particular topic, we can expand it.
Yes, yeah, of course we can.
Previously, we didn't have any women who were construction managers, who were quantity surveyors. We have them now. We didn't have a lot of women in your timber professions at Mercedes-Benz and everywhere else. We have that now. And this is why we always need to safeguard the Constitution, because our Constitution does not say you are unable to effect all of your rights if you do A, B, and C. You do not have to meet certain requirements for you to be seen to be worthy of all the rights that are within the Bill of Rights. I think that's something that we always need to put into context. Whether you vote or not does not mean your rights will be protected less. But we are simply urging you to put your voice forward, to say that this is what I believe in, this is the political party that I'm willing to put my voice towards. I think that's also another notion that we always need to teach people, because I know as political parties we're very guilty of that, to say if you don't vote, you can't complain about vote for because you didn't vote. No.
Why?
That's not right. Even if someone did not vote for the ANC, for the DA, for the EFF, or whatever political party, as a citizen of the country, they have a right to complain.
You have a right to make your mark on the ballot paper. And if you don't make the mark, put it this way, you don't register to vote. Then you don't go and vote. A couple of months later, you're upset about something and you burn a building down. Is that fair? You had your chance to make your ballot mark. You had your chance to have a say. Because if you don't vote, if you don't have your say, then somebody else is going to say, I'm going to be talking on your behalf. So why should a person who decides to not register and not vote have a right to complain? You had your chance to make your mark on the ballot paper.
Okay, Alala.
No. My sense is that service delivery is not determined by voting. That's my sense. But equally, as a citizen, you have your own responsibility of taking charge of what must happen in your life, in your community, in your country. So I'm simply saying that regardless of voting or not, everyone deserves service delivery, a good one. When someone protests, I mean, no one goes to a ballot papers, the registration rolls to check if, did you register, did you vote, for you to complain? No. You are a citizen of the country, you are entitled to these services as promised by the leading government, which is what our constitutional democracy brought to us as led by the sitting government, which is good thing for the country, for everyone. I'm simply saying that we are well and fine as citizens, we must all get services equally and quality services.
Okay, so, Mark.
Yeah, I think for both sides of the argument, there is a case for both sides. I can talk from my own experience, for example, being a ward councillor and being elected, you try and your best to offer services and be there for the people. But then you get people that you find out that are demanding on you, complain to you, but then you find out they're not even registered to vote. So it can be, I won't say demoralizing, it can be just, it's so difficult to respond to those people, and you get angry as a person to say, you complain, but you had an opportunity to try and make your mark, but you never took it. On the other side of it is that people can say, okay, I don't want to vote, but I pay my rates and taxes.
Yeah.
I have the right to service delivery. So both sides have an argument. But what I always say to my residents and to people is that, yes, you pay your rates and taxes, but by making your mark on a ballot paper is that you need to understand is that at the end of the day there will always be a political party that will govern a municipality, regardless. You can't shy away from that.
But what we're getting to is, in February there's a registration weekend. I think we can all agree we want as many youth, as many people in our country to register. Because if you don't register, you can't vote. You might register and decide you don't want to vote, but at least register. Are we telling everybody out there, do your bit, as everybody in South Africa, do your bit to register to vote, right? Pumlani, maybe we open a can of worms here, maybe we don't. I'm looking at the scarf.
No. we will definitely encourage people generally, in particular young people, to register and vote because this is their future. This is our future. as young
Absolutely, it's
people,
our future.
which we must make a determination of what our country wanted to be tomorrow. So we definitely encourage young people to go out in numbers, register so that on the day of voting you are able to appear on the voters roll.
Absolutely. Talk to me about the scarf.
Oh, the scarf.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
This scarf is a very progressive scarf which is in solidarity with the people of Palestine whom are currently experiencing a very dehumanizing acts from the government of Israel. Even our government, which we can congratulate for their bravery action to take Israel to International Court of Justice in terms of a 1945 convention. We wish them our legal representation well, as they can represent in particular our case and also people of Palestine against very mischievous government of Israel.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, it's a firebrand topic, and sometimes people don't want to discuss it. They don't want to get involved. Anati, you don't have to say anything. You leave it. Maybe it's a government thing. It's not an opposition thing.
No,
you can chirp in if you want it.
As the DA, we are against a genocidal approach, genocidal occupation, also understanding where we do come from an apartheid state as South Africa. We've always advocated for a two-state solution when it comes to Israel and Palestine, and that's where we're leaving it. And we are also just keeping a very close eye on the proceedings both today and tomorrow. And we wish the people of Palestine and Israel all the best.
I've always said we cannot start from a point of hatred. You know, these people need to live together. They need to come together. This is how South Africa overcame it, you know. I always thought to myself, Nelson Mandela had come out of prison and he was a bitter old man and he wanted civil war. This country would have been completely different. And look at us now. And that's the point. There's a colored man, there's a black man, there's a black female, there's an Indian man, and here we are speaking. We've got a fantastic crew of color behind us. They living their dreams. We're doing something absolutely amazing, and this country is worth fighting for. So yeah, you've seen the topics, you've seen the passion. Go out, register, become, follow policies of a party. It's up to you to decide if you want to vote or who you should vote for, but you should vote for somebody. Join your church, join your local NGO, do something, because at the end of the day, it's not just government, it's also us as citizens that need to get involved. The hashtag is man in the arena, but you can also say it's woman in the arena, and the premise here is you need to step into the arena of life. You'd rather die in the arena of life on your knees than stand on the sidelines on your tour without getting involved in the game of life. So this is a great discussion point. I'm sure we're going to have much more discussions as we go forward, and that's the whole point. Discuss this around the dinner table. Discuss it with your friends. This is our beautiful Eastern Cape. This is our beautiful country. I think it's the greatest country in the world. I get so excited when I see our flag. Let's go out and make it a country that we can be proud of. Man in the arena.
Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you. Gentlemen, thanks so much, and we'll see you
On
again.
top of voting, young people must also be participating in the policy formulations.
Yes,
There we
agree.
go. There we go.
Because policies are the ones that are governing us. That one is very important. On a day-to-day basis of the running of government, young people must participate.
Absolutely.
All those that they voted for, accountable.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Let's be the people in the arena. See you next time, South Africa and the world.